Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the debut record from Reliqa, Secrets of the Future, out May 31st on Nuclear Blast. The album has 12 tracks, 51 minutes in length, and they are an Australian progressive metalcore band. And when it comes to the design of this record, the best way to describe it is controlled chaos. The album pulls you, and that's not a bad thing, because it works extremely well considering the sound and experience that the record offers. This album, song in and song out, pulls you in a million different directions. Not just on a song-by-song basis, but within single tracks. You never really know what's coming around the corner. You always being pulled, and your attention is being pulled, and you're looking at different elements of the tracks, and you're seeing where these songs are going. But you're so connected with the overall drive of the record. You're so connected with the overall journey that this album provides, that the overall drastic roller coaster ride that the album offers from a design standpoint feels right. It feels necessary for the sound, for the style, for the record, for this album. This controlled chaos, this roller coaster ride that sometimes feels like it's going off the hinges, works extremely well within this record and makes the overall album have incredible playability, which is a difficult thing to do when you have 12 songs and 51 minutes. It's a long album, but the quality of the album and the chaos that exists within the design almost shrink the length of the record. Now, as far as the sound is concerned, the album has great sound quality. It offers unique experiences because this album doesn't fall under one single umbrella. I know earlier on I said that they are a progressive metalcore band, and that is true to a certain degree. But when you listen to this album, I feel like the progressive side of the band is not just in the sound of the band, it's in their overall approach. The approach to the album design, the approach to the individual song compositions, the approach to the vocal delivery, everything about this album, all the details about this album could fall under that progressive umbrella. So it's perhaps more about mentality, it's perhaps a little bit more about the approach than it is about the end result, staying focused, try to fit everything into one box. Because sound-wise, this album does not fit in a single box. It's a very dynamic record. It has new metal elements, it has djent elements, metalcore elements, progressive elements. It's just an album that has a lot to offer and has a lot of variety, but somehow puts all of this variety together in a very fluid way where you're not constantly being jolted, you're not constantly feeling like the song has a break or that the tracks give you a chance to walk away from the album. This album keeps you glued to it, and that doesn't come just from the experience, the dynamic, eclectic experience that the album has, but also the quality behind it, the way the sound is presented. I feel like this album had a really unique way of, for example, connecting the drums with the guitars. When you look at the heavier side of the guitar sound, that heavier side of the guitar sound pairs up extremely well with the heavier side of the drums. The two almost become one, and this gives consistency to the tracks. And at the same time that they're doing that, they're still allowing the guitars to go off and break away from that and have a little bit more of a driven sound, have a little bit more of a dynamic sound, so that the overall experience is not linear, is not static. It rather has movement, not just lateral movement, but up and down movement. So it's a very interesting aspect of this record, the way the guitars and drums cooperate with one another in order to give some more oomph, in order to give some more volume to the record, but at the same time allowing them to break apart in order for you to create distance between the two so that the songs feel bigger, sound bigger, and allows them to put a lot more layers and creating a lot more texture. The bass sound, for example, really popping through this album, and at times you could see that almost works like the glue that holds everything together, that holds those drums and guitars together, that allows them to separate, bridging the gap between them, allowing the guitars to be more driven, and then bringing them back into the fold. So it's an album that has that sort of depth, and within that depth you have a lot of layers, you have a lot of texture, not just musically, but layers vocally as well. And all of this creates great quality of sound with great production behind it that has that modern touch. This is a modern sounding album when you think of metalcore as a genre, when you think of djent, for example, when you think of progressive metalcore or even progressive metal. The sound quality, the crisp quality of the production plays a huge factor in how that sound then translates to its audience, and I feel like on this album they did an incredible job with that. Now, vocally, Monique is amazing. She has this really rich delivery. She's not a linear singer. She doesn't stay in the pocket. She doesn't stay perhaps where it's more comfortable, because I feel like there is no real comfort zone perhaps with her. Her range is really dynamic. She can do a lot of different things, and she feels and sounds very comfortable in all of them, either be the more hip-hop style vocals and some of the new metal pieces that the tracks have, or the more dark, somber delivery, or the warmer, brighter delivery that really helps open up some of these tracks. Because that's the other thing about this album, is that the songs musically feel very open. They don't feel, you know, restrained. They don't feel like they are collapsing to within. The songs really feel bright and open, and her voice a lot of the times helps with that. It helps open them up even more. But one of the key characteristics of her voice that I really like is the ability to sound both warm and cold almost at the same time, and definitely in the same songs. It's a really unique characteristic that she has, that she goes with the vibe of the sound, and she almost morphs into what the sound needs in order to better represent itself. So it's a very dynamic performance from her, which adds to the overall dynamic vibe, dynamic experience that this record has. A magnificent record all around. I'm blown away by both the quality and the execution, and how good this album is, how good it sounds, how fresh it feels. I know a lot of people always say that, I've heard this before, this song sounds like that song. When you listen to a band that's able to create perhaps a unique fingerprint, even though that unique fingerprint is made up of genres, styles, sounds that you've heard before, you still have to be able to see the forest from the trees and really acknowledge when a band is doing something unique, different, and something that deserves to be talked about. And I feel like this album is definitely going to have people talking about it in a positive way, because it is a great sounding record. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Dying Light. Opening track on the record, it has a little bit of an electronic opening to it, and that electronic opening stays, not consistently, but it stays throughout the track, so it allows you to see the reason for it in the beginning, because it becomes a little bit of the breadcrumbs throughout the overall flow of the song. But the track moves into a more heavier, thicker guitar sound. The vocals are very dynamic, as is the sound, and this creates movement. It makes the song feel more fluid, and it doesn't really fall into a pattern. I never really felt like this was a track that was made of patterns. It's rather a song that it's made of moments, and some of those moments have similar attributes, but it's still different moments, and that is how the whole song comes together. It's a song that has a heavier side, that has a more electronic side, that has perhaps a little bit more of a melancholic side. Very dynamic vocally and musically. A great track to open up the record, because it showcases almost in a single track every single aspect of this album, both musically and vocally. Next we have Crossfire. This track has a more electronic atmosphere to it. While the previous song, the electronic element kind of came in and out, on this track I felt like there's definitely more of a heavier fingerprint once again, as far as that electronic sound is concerned. And with the clean guitars around it, you have this electronic ambiance with the clean guitars pushing the vocals into the forefront, really putting the vocals on a pedestal, allowing you to see them as the main protagonist of this story, and then they carry you through. The chorus is very haunting, stands out as it should. It breaks away from the more sorrowful, the more introspective verses, and then you could start to see the heavier sound that comes into that chorus, that allows the chorus also to be more explosive. It also has more layers, so it's a chorus that feels streamlined because of its simplicity in terms of you connecting with it, from being catchy and hooky. But it's also a chorus that has a lot more layers and a lot more volume to it than in the verses. But it's a track that builds up, because from verse to verse you start to see more elements being added on, and then you can see how those verses were building up towards the chorus. It's just that the chorus came in a little bit bigger right from the get-go. So it's a really interesting track, as you see the building blocks, but you also see exactly where those building blocks are going to lead you to. So a really interesting song from an overall construction standpoint. Last but definitely not least, Upside Down. Really layered sound. I think this is the most layered song on the record, both musically and vocally. It just has a very rich sound and a very rich sound experience to it. It almost feels at times like there are 2 to 3 songs into one. Like they recorded 2 or 3 songs and then they just layer them one on top of the other. So you're listening to one song going in one direction and you're listening to another song coming in the opposite direction, while there's another song that's kind of just standing still in between them. It's a really hard track to process brain-wise because of all of these layers, because of all of this movement, but it's a really iconic song because of how different it is, because of how layered it is, and how mind-boggling it becomes. The solo on this track is phenomenal. It adds so much clarity to a song that's so complex. It's perhaps the most clear moment of sound in the entire track. And to me, creating a song like this is really the definition of prog. Thinking outside the box and creating something different and unique. This is it, Reliqa with Secrets of the Future, out May 31st on Nuclear Blast. Hit me up in the comment section, let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles, and I'll see you all at the next video. Take care, guys.